is when we decide to intervene to provide effective decompression of neural elements that are compromised, physiologically aligned to the C-spine, and a mechanically sound fusion and or reconstruction. The promise with Tech for a Better Future collides with our realities, which again, hopefully are not like this, but again, there are a lot of different things that are flying into the reality of our operating environments that make this right side an appealing advertisement glossy thing, but maybe not reality. So I'm not going to read out all of these things, there's simply no time for this, but basically in terms of data, in terms of visualization, in terms of end effector applications, and in terms of net gain, these are kind of the main talking points about technology in the OR, and again, the human creativity is really amazing in trying to create these things. I'm not going to expound on one over the other, but the fact is, and this is the key slide here, that when we actually put dollar signs to this US dollar, this actually becomes really, really expensive rapidly. And what the really dirty trick is, and again, this will come out tomorrow, I think, during our Global Spine Journal session, the underlying costs are dramatic. The submarine costs, service upkeep, updates, tech support, licensing fees, this is all extra dollars. I'm going to give you a cautionary tale. These images are not from the patient. I'm intentionally not showing those. I simply grabbed those off the internet. The actual images were more shocking. But a while ago, a young surgeon decided to do an endoscopic L3-4 transfemoral discectomy, and this mid-50s patient with a very simple L3-4, very marginal stenosis, coded on the table. And she had a massive hydrothorax, hydroperitoneum. And again, one of the nurses during a shift had forgotten to, or didn't know how to do the outflow monitoring. And basically the patient ended up with 10 liters of fluid in her body and coded. The patient survived. And this is my very dear friend Izzy Lieberman in 2011. And again, he's thinking about retiring, but with robotics, again, I hope very much that this dear lifelong friend of mine will be able to function at least until 2030. So I'm a dinosaur surgeon, and I view with some skepticism the things that are going on. But recently I had to have a surgical procedure not in the spine domain. And when I asked my friends around the world, what should I look for in a surgeon? They said, get a surgeon over 50. I thought that was an interesting perspective, but the thought was these are surgeons that are more trained in conventional surgical techniques. And again, tomorrow we'll see something that I think Dr. Bandari will also like. There was an article that came out in the Journal of Spine, and I'm very jealous of it, because guess what we're most interested in? We're interested in hits and clicks and downloads, right? And then references later. And this article by a young colleague with Dan Schuber as a senior author really got a major wave. Even before it actually came out, I tried to show that slide, but it didn't come out. Sorry, it got lost in the shuffle. Got 42 letters to the editor pre-proof. This is pretty wild. I was on their board there, so this was pretty wild. And basically all of these articles were just, all these letters to the editor were really shooting the messenger. We basically identified that there are substantial delays in real life experiences in upstate New York, and way higher costs with a very dubious actual benefit to patient care. So just the thought provocation was amazing how organized this was. And again, we really still suffer in trying to digitize the human spine. It's actually pretty wild. And that's just the spine, that's not even the mind. So again, this is an advertisement for tomorrow. This is a well-known slide, all of you know that. This is the slide of early adopters versus late adopters, and Scott's parabola identifies that kind of a cresting wave of adoption. And I'm definitely not on the height of this, but there's a problem, and that's complications reporting lags behind it. It's strategically about year to 3 years sometimes, depending on the cases. And the problem is that when these case events that are adverse come out, there's a growing disenchantment with a new technology that in itself is actually expected to have a rising complication rate. But the delay makes it perceived in the public to be a problem. So this is why many promising techniques have fallen by the wayside. Another big point of mine about innovation right now is this aspect of cosmesis, because to me, this actually does look a little bit like hucksterism. The Band-Aid spine surgery is so cool, and we can really show our prowess by being very smart about our incisions, but I'm not sure that if I'm asked to build a model ship and I can somehow do a pretty decent job in a glass bottle, that this actually equates what I could do in real life. And I don't build model ships. But this is what I see in real life. Again, these patients who've been oozy, literally front and back, and in the end we have to resort to a good old-fashioned procedure. So I'm not a skeptic here, but this is a slide I showed last year, but this is actually from last year. But this is literally from a 3-month period of fusions done with creative energy. Sorry, Dr. Tabo, this is something that nowadays should not happen anymore. So the spine is an amazing constellation, not just of bones, but it has a brain on top of it. And the single biggest problem that I see about innovation that I ask all of you to carry in your minds is this fusion thing, because many of these newer technologies actually try to have more fusions done. This is a physical therapist who had the sequence of surgeries done, 7 surgeries in a very healthy and health-minded person, and that's just not right. The real problem for us is that we're aging as a planet, we're getting more and more sick, and again, this famous silver tsunami has further encouraged us sitting, so all of us sitting here. And on a global perspective, the Global Burden of Disease study has shown that spine-related problems are an amazing business opportunity. So they're clearly on the rise in terms of overall things. So we as spine surgeons particularly have to be worried about the spine and how do we really do that? And can technology really do that? The real premise for me, the real challenge is how to do more high-quality surgery in ever sicker patients with highest possible efficiency, achieving acceptable durability of these procedures. And that's the real problem for me. So the spine maze of new technologies is a business model. It's a very cool thing to kind of see things. But for me, the aha effect is amazing, and sadly, probably this video is not going to play, but I was going to show you sorry, I almost mentioned the manufacturer, but these newer ultrasounds, for instance, this first time I saw them, I could see a spinal cord literally 3-dimensionally without any ionizing radiation, physiologically pump and pulsate and watch the blood flow. That for me was one of the things. Or I recently saw an iPhone-based navigation system. That's an aha effect. That has a high potential to be relatively low cost and make an immediate, massive impact on how we do things without having $1 million thing. So remember the 3 E's of medical evidentiary economics: efficacy, effectiveness, and efficiency. And again, those are the 3 tiers. And the RCT, sorry, Dr. Bandari, that's just the third, the most shallow level of what we actually need to look at. So what does this leave us with, again, in this era of undeniable, amazing advancements of digitization? For me, the secret of success is actually looking at some of the older superstars like Dr. Majid Sami in Hamburg, Germany, or David Skaggs. They are all very calm, they are all very organized in their teams. When I visit with them, they have an amazing human enigma around them. Their teams are phenomenal. And this reminds me again of probably the single biggest thing that I can contribute, hopefully, to this talk, that is creating a flow state. So rather than relying on technology to do better surgery, creating a really good, healthy organization around us, an OR nurse who leaves the room knows to check on the outflow potential for a patient. So creating a flow space in the OR is probably the single biggest innovation, how we can connect our brains together. I've gotten a lot of kudos for my 10 commandments in spine surgery, which is actually all just keyed on one thing: be a reasonable human being, work with your fellow human beings, respect their patients, and love what you're doing, and nobody gets hurt. And with this, I thank you very much for this opportunity to talk.